If you keep attracting enmeshed dynamics in relationships, it's likely because it's challenging for you to set healthy boundaries, individuate, and differentiate. It's repetition compulsion from childhood. You learned enmeshed dynamics in relationships in childhood, and because that's so comfortable and familiar to the root, that's why it's happening again. You didn't learn healthy boundaries, you didn't learn individuation and differentiation. You learned to be part of a blob, whether it's a family system or, a relationship with two people. You learned that there's no difference between you and the other. You learned to take on other people's shit when you didn't have to, because that's not your responsibility, because other people's shit is other people's shit. People that are enmeshed have a very difficult time with boundaries because they learned that there's really no boundaries in relationships. They learned responsibility that was not theirs to take on, especially from such an early age. And so that became comfortable and familiar, and that's just something that you've learned to continue to be attracted to. And it might be challenging to set healthy boundaries, individuate, and differentiate because you might feel like you're losing yourself by doing so. Because when you set the healthy boundaries, you're essentially like, look at self-worth for interest for just as an example. If you learned to source self-worth in another individual, and you essentially set a healthy boundary of, no, I determine my self-worth alone and I'm not going to source it from other people, that's a very different dynamic, but it is healthy. Sourcing self-worth from other people is not healthy. Seeking validation and approval from other people is not healthy. That might be contradictory to what it is that you learned growing up, but an autonomous individual does not seek self-worth and validation from other people. They determine themselves. So this setting of healthy boundaries, this individuating and differentiating away from other people, can feel very lonely. It can feel like you're losing something that doesn't feel like it's right to lose. And this is something that can be really challenging for people to heal away from this unhealthy dynamic, because it's a completely different dynamic. But healthy relationships are just like night and day in comparison to enmeshed relationships. That's just the reality of it. It's a wild difference, and experiencing that difference gives you the insight about the difference itself.